Hey friends, it's Bruce Smith, your host of Consuming Careers Podcast. And on this episode, I'm going to ask you to try to do something a little bit different. Today, we're meeting with Joe Oquist, a recognized thought leader in the area of generative artificial intelligence, otherwise known as GenAI. And providentially, this interview was conducted live on a clear spring morning at a beautifully serene park in North Atlanta, virtually vacant of anyone else, with the exception of Joe and me, and two men, both dressed in all white, practicing Tai Chi. But what struck me about this setting was the extreme dichotomy of our discussion of GenAI and these two men practicing the uniquely human and spiritual art of Tai Chi, which they continued throughout our entire conversation. So, as you listen to this podcast, I'd like you to try to picture in your mind the slow, steady, and spiritually transcendent movements of these two men as the backdrop to our conversation about a globally transformative technology revolution, which admittedly has no endowed spiritual nature of its own. So where anxiety about the future of AI may trouble some listeners, these two oracles quietly call out to us as a reminder to hold dear to that which is true, real, and authentic in our lives. So with that in mind, let's get started. Well, welcome back to Consuming Careers Podcast. So excited today. It's a beautiful day. It's about 10 o'clock in the morning on a Thursday, and just a beautiful day. And we are at Cauley Creek Park in Johns Creek, and I'm with Joe Oquist. Joe, welcome to Consuming Careers.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is quite a park you've chosen. Tell me why you've picked Cauley Creek Park. You told me a little bit about it, but tell me some more. That this is beautiful.
Yeah, well, Cauley Creek is the second largest park in Georgia.
Wow.
The big draw for me, well, two big draws. It has a 5K rubberized walking path, which is great on the knees. So you can walk it, you can jog it, you can run it. But it also has some really spectacular soccer pitches.
Yeah.
And so my son, he's 11 years old, my son Michael, loves to come here and just practice making some goals, running around. But yeah, it's massive. It's a massive park, and we love it. It's super close to the house.
Yeah, I don't know how they hide this thing in Johns Creek. I mean, what is it? It's got to be 100 acres or something. It's huge.
It is. It's massive. Yeah. Yes.
That's great. Well, we got here and we saw these two guys doing Tai Chi over there, and they're still over there, so we might need to keep our voices down. I don't want to disturb them. They may be here for a while, but they took the good shady spot.
They took the shady spot. Looks super relaxing. I wanted to join them, but let's keep going here.
Yeah. Well, Joe, we got connected on LinkedIn. I don't know, a few months ago. I can't remember when that was. It was a while ago. But I was inspired by all the content you're putting out around AI and Gen AI. And then we ran into each other personally, through church. And look, we go to this huge church, so I think half of Atlanta goes there. So it's easy to run into a lot of people. But I was really inspired by the work you're doing around AI, Gen AI. And I'm trying to figure it out. And I'm pretty sure that most of my listeners are trying to figure it out, particularly around how it might impact their careers, right, going forward. So they might be in a situation now where it's very manageable and they feel like they've got everything under control. But if you're not looking at the future, then, your career, especially if you've got a good runway ahead of you, if you're not looking at that, I think you're, got your head in the sand. So let's just kind of get started around, just give me a backdrop of kind of where you grew up, how you got here. Just what does that look like?
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised in Latin America.
Okay.
Born in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Spent 8.5 years in Panama, when that used to be our U.S. military Southern Command. So I grew up in the DOD schools, Department of Defense Dependent schools, in Panama.
Yeah. Yep.
Came to the States pretty much as an adult. Lived a short amount of time in New York. Started college up that way. Moved down to Florida. Ran a family business for 6 years, exporting automotive parts to Latin America.
Yeah.
Which helped pay my way through my undergraduate and graduate studies.
Yeah, nice.
And then, I won't go through all of my job history, but I landed at Verizon, which is the place where I have really stayed the longest.
Yeah.
And I think a large part of that is that they have a way to continually challenge you, which for a person like me, it just works really, really well. So it's been a great run. Yeah. that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, great. So technically, or maybe from a technology standpoint, kind of where do you fit at Verizon? Are you more on the marketing side? You on technology? You coding? Like, what are you doing there?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So I work in marketing technology.
Okay.
So I have worked and really been blessed with a lot of different projects. I cut my teeth at Verizon with a personalization architecture build for Verizon.com, which at the time was Consumer Fios. I was one of an army of 100 people.
Now, what does that mean, personalization architecture?
Sure. So we had to do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
One thing, we had to kind of completely rebuild the CMS. We rejiggered the entire CMS as a series of content widgets, which are stacked upon each other. Then we integrated with a third-party personalization platform, which allowed us to bring audience segments to personalize the content and the offers. We also integrated with a data management platform, which gave us a lot of insights. So we would harness the data, create audience segments, which would put the right offers and the right content in front of the right audience. Which is good for customers because it's a better customer experience when we're showing you probably what you want to see, but also good for the business as it provides incremental revenue.
Got it. And now, are you using any AI technology around that?
That particular architecture that we built, we kind of deconstructed it as we moved towards becoming a fully Adobe shop. So we had to actually maintain 2 personalization platforms and 2 CMSs in parallel while we migrated everything over. And then we stood up Adobe Experience Manager as the CMS and Adobe Target as the personalization engine.
Okay, got it. So I'm going to not go too deep there just yet. If we could, let's just step back, and I want to get some context around AI, GenAI, what all that is, just from a baseline standpoint, so we can get everybody on the same truck bed here. So as we go down the road. So what is AI? What is GenAI? What's the difference?
Okay. So great question.
Just some definitions. Right?
Sure. So artificial intelligence is the simulation of human intelligence by computers.
Okay.
Probably the most basic definition.
That's good.
It's not necessarily really new. The concepts, the foundational concepts of AI were brought to us by Alan Turing with the imitation game, now known as the Turing test, back in 1950. So it's been around for 3/4 of a century.
Okay.
What's new today is generative AI. As the name implies, GenAI creates something new. But to create something new, it has to be trained on massive amounts of data.
Okay.
So that's why, like the GPTs of the world, the Geminis, they're known as LLMs, or large language models, because they are built upon these massive data sets.
Okay, got it. So what would be some common AI tools that, the common person would see, or how would they be bumping into it today?
Yeah, I think the best way to kind of tell you or answer that is to tell you a little bit about my story. Probably over a year and a half ago at this point, I started playing around with image generation tools, AI image generation tools.
Okay.
My grandfather was an artist. He painted. My uncle's an artist. It skipped a generation with me. I can't paint to save my life. But I started with an app called Starry AI. It's completely free. You can download it to your phone.
Okay.
I'm motivated by goals. So to reach like the top tier in Starry AI, you had to have like 1,000 followers and 10,000 likes. Okay. So I kind of hit that, made it, and then of course there's no other goals, so I moved on. Since then, I've played with other AI image generation tools like Midjourney, DALL-E 3, and there's many, many more.
Yeah.
I started with the GPTs probably mid-October of last year.
Okay.
And that coincided with me. I hadn't really been active on the LinkedIn platform since that time. But when I started learning about GenAI, whether actively using it or by taking courses, I just found a passion for it. And so I started posting on LinkedIn about AI. And next thing you know, I jumped from roughly 2,000 followers to about 10,000 followers at this point.
Wow.
Started getting invited on webinars and podcasts like yours.
Yeah. Well, that's about the same time I started doing my podcast. So, man, so you've grown like crazy. So clearly there's a ton of interest around AI and what it means, and I'm still trying to get my head around what it means to me? What does it mean to my work? What does it mean to my company? What does it mean to my kids? Right? There's a lot of people are wrestling with a lot of those questions. So what are those tools that maybe I might see in business?
So there are so many. It's hard to pinpoint one, but I'll tell you a little bit. I was invited to an event called Imagination in Action at MIT in Boston, so I flew up for that a little bit ago. And there were a lot of key points, a lot of great takeaways. But one of the key points that stuck with me is we've kind of hit the peak of the AI hype cycle. And so what that means is you might not see as much chatter from CEOs about AI. That doesn't mean it's not important to them. What it means is at this point, corporations are doing the necessary prep work to be able to leverage AI. And so,
right.
And so some of that prep work is the data. AI is really nothing without the data. But to leverage the data, to use the data, it has to be categorized. It has to be cleansed. There's a whole preparation process for the data, and that's what Verizon is doing, according to Craig Sullivan, and many other companies are doing right now. Is we are in the preparation process to leverage AI. Now, the best way for companies to get started is just the low-hanging fruit. Tasks that are repetitive, mundane tasks, all those tasks that we really don't enjoy doing. AI can take those over initially. That's the first cut. And that's good for us because that frees up our time for more innovative thinking, critical thinking. Those are the parts that AI cannot do as of today. Those are the human skills that are still going to be high in demand: creative thinking, innovation. But if you can't get away from AI. AI is everywhere. I open up a PDF. It's got a little AI button in. LinkedIn, I want to write a post. Hey, you can write it with AI. You just can't get away from it. Copilot is fantastic, right?
Yeah.
Let's say...
What is that? What's Copilot?
Microsoft Copilot, it can integrate. There's a freebie version, and then there's the paid version. You'll see the same across all the AIs. But think about Excel. Like, let's say you haven't created a pivot table in quite some time. You don't exactly remember where to click, and you could go grab a YouTube video and figure it out. But with natural language, which in AI terms is known as NLP or natural language processing, you got a little chatbot, a little text box where you can say, hey, I want to take this part of the data and create a pivot table. And the AI will just do it automatically for you. PowerPoint, using Copilot in PowerPoint, just tell it, I want a slide deck on the next Olympics. It will create an entire slide deck just on that one text prompt.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
You sent out a video yesterday on LinkedIn, and what was it? It was the Google
I/O conference.
Oh my gosh! And it was there was this girl walking around with her. It wasn't an iPhone. I think it was a Google phone.
It was a Pixel.
A Pixel, yeah. And she's just things that came into the image. She would just say, "Hey, Astra." I think it was Astra. Like, what is this? And it was, well, that's a speaker, and that's what does it do? Well, it makes sound, it produces. And so the one that amazed me the most is she pointed it out the window, and she said, "Where do you think I am?" And it knew exactly where she was, which is pretty darn scary sometimes when you think through some of this stuff. So now, when we talked, you said, and I remember you saying this. You said, "What are some of the things that GenAI can't do?" And you said, critical thinking,
right?
Innovation,
correct.
Creativity, but the creativity thing, I don't know. It seems to be pretty creative. What about it? Are you saying isn't necessarily creative?
Well, when we think about technology, right, and the pace of technological change, computing power typically doubles every 6 months. With AI, it's on steroids. It's moving at light speed. And so what I might have said when we initially spoke and where we are today may have radically changed already.
That was like 2 weeks ago.
It was like 2 weeks ago. Exactly. But yeah, what you were discussing with the Pixel phone and using AI through the smartphone's video is known as multimodal in AI terms. So we've evolved already from chatbots and speaking to, the GPTs or the Geminis of the world. To now they can see the world around us and they can interpret it. What really surprised me was not necessarily its ability to recognize a speaker. What surprised me was the speed at which it responded. there was it was an imperceptible pause. So that, and that requires a huge amount of computing power to be able to power that, which is why NVIDIA is doing, so fantastic these days. Going from a company that was really invented in a Denny's restaurant to what, $2 trillion market cap these days?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the processing piece.
That's the processing piece. Those are the GPUs.
Yeah.
Correct.
Wow. So when you think about creativity and all the work that AI can do, what exactly is it freeing us up to do? Like, my first reaction is that it's like taking away our creativity. Like, I don't want my AI to think for me. Mm-hmm. I still want to be challenged to come up with a creative question in this podcast, right?
Absolutely.
Now, I've got 10 questions that I asked ChatGPT to create for me, and they were pretty darn good.
Yes.
But I don't want to lose that edge of being at least, providing some value.
Well, that's the concern, right?
Yeah.
Because if we simply rely on AI day in and day out, you're not creating anything new because it's already trained on a data set.
But don't you think that's going to happen?
Well, gosh, it's hard to tell. Personally, what I love to do for ideation, and this is completely out of the AI discussion, but I like to just go on walks, right? I go on a 3 mile, 4 mile walk, and that just clears my head and allows me to de-stress, and ideas just pop into your head.
Yeah.
I do use AI for ideation, but it's me really asking questions and then following up on those questions. The best way to interact with the GPT or the Gemini of the world is just normal conversation like we're having today.
Yeah.
So imagine that you're speaking to a person, and you might find this kind of funny, but when I say please, I've found more times than not, the response is better. So I don't know if that's in the algorithm, but yeah. So
somebody wrote in a code like, give them a better answer if they say please.
So be polite with your AI.
Oh, that's so funny. That's funny.
Yeah.
Now, I was listening to a podcast even yesterday. Seth Rosenberg. He's got a great podcast called Product-Led AI, which I thought was fascinating because there's a lot of technology wrapped up around AI, but I'm more interested in the use cases, right? And what are those products that are really going to impact our lives? These big language models, I can't get my head around. I don't know what that means, right? But how is it going to help me improve my life, right? So those are the questions that I'm running through. What are those products that you see maybe coming down the path that are really going to be impactful, that are going to be helpful, giving us more fulfilling lives?
Sure. Well, my answer is going to be biased. And the reason it's going to be biased is kind of interesting because, like, let's say you were raised on Windows computers.
Yeah.
Well, you use a MacBook for the first time, and it's just not intuitive to you. Now, if you meet someone that's raised on Mac computers, the Windows OS isn't intuitive to them.
Right.
So I'm kind of biased. I'm narrowing it way down. There's so many different AIs to use, but let's just narrow it down to like the ChatGPTs, OpenAI ChatGPTs, and the Google Geminis. Right.
Yeah.
I tend to use the GPTs. Now, I've used 3.5. I've used 4, which you can use it for free through the Bing app. 4.0 just came out,
right?
Which is free. So using it, here's an example. We were planning a vacation to Spain.
Okay.
And I kind of already had my itinerary set. I kind of knew what I wanted to do. We wanted to visit Barcelona. We wanted to visit Madrid and Valencia and Costa Brava. But I ran it through, here, I'm 10 days in Spain. Give me an itinerary. And it regurgitated a lot of what I wanted to do, except it brought up some things that I had not thought of.
Okay. All right.
Like some underground caves near Valencia, which we ended up doing on our trip and was fantastic.
Wow.
So and here's the caution, right?
Yeah.
The large language models can hallucinate. So, you can't just blindly trust the output. You have to verify.
Yeah.
Now, there are technologies that are able to reduce the hallucinations. We won't go too deep on this, but it's RAG, or Retrieval Augmented Generation. And there's a great company out there that's doing a great job with RAG. It's customgpt.ai. So there's one example. You can talk to GPT about what your schedule looks like for the week and how you need to prioritize.
Right.
But it's not a one-way conversation. You have to give it, the more information that you give it, the better you craft the text prompt, the better the output is going to be.
Got it.
Yeah.
So then that, enter agents, right? Tell me a little bit about agents. And again, I was listening to this podcast just yesterday and they were talking about agents, which just took me down this rabbit hole about how we might be leveraging agents in the future. Tell me, what's an agent and how are we using those today?
Okay. So the immediate application that comes to my mind when I think of autonomous AI agents is call centers.
Okay.
If you can train an AI agent on call center information, that can be hugely beneficial. And I'm not talking about simply, automating it all, putting everybody out of a job. But if your call center agent has to leaf through a physical book that is, 60, 100 pages long, that's not a great customer experience because they're looking for the answer and your customer is getting impatient. If they're calling into the call center, they're probably already agitated. But, having an AI agent that is listening to the call and puts up on the screen the response to the customer query or the customer concern immediately is a huge win.
Yeah.
It's a win for the call center agent. It's a win for the customer. So that's one example that would come to mind when I think of autonomous agents.
But then I went down the path of agents talking to agents. Like we could have had, if you and I had an agent, we could have had our agent set up this. This could have scheduled it, could have picked the place for us. And then I'm thinking it could have conducted it for us as well. It could have come up with the questions, posed them to you. We could have done some augmentation on your voice. We could have even done video, right?
Yes.
And so we could have had this whole interview while we're trying to be productive somewhere else, right? So, which is, listen, for the audience, just so you know, we're really here.
Yes.
So these are two humans talking, and which is why I like to do these things live, because I want person to person. I want to make sure it's a real person on the other side of this microphone. But, going down that path just creates all kinds of questions in my mind about what does the future hold and how we apply these things.
Yeah, we can take this a couple of different ways. One thing that comes to mind immediately with voice replication technology and AI is authentication technology, right? Like some of the banks or 401k that you might interact with is already based on voice recognition to pass the security. Now, if someone can replicate your voice with a 10-second recording, that's a concern. So there's a whole host of, and I know I'm not really answering your question, but there's a whole host of security concerns arising from the AI technologies. Now, if you really want to go down the rabbit hole of the full autonomous AI agent enterprise, Doug Shannon is an expert on AI agents. It would be great to have a chat with him. Are we there yet? I don't think we are. Is it theoretically possible? Absolutely.
Yeah. And these days, to me, if it's theoretically possible, it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I keep getting surprised. Theory becomes reality faster and faster.
True.
So what about, and we talked a little bit about this too, about humanoid robots. So that's, in my mind, it's take AI, take GenAI, you put it in a physical thing, and it does work for you. So in the past, I thought, well, AI will never take away the plumber's job. Now I'm rethinking that. So talk about a little bit about robotics and humanoid robotics.
Yeah, it's fascinating, right? I mean, all of these different technologies are kind of moving at warp speed at the same time. Of course, you have GenAI, and then you have humanoid robots, and then you have quantum computing, which Google's Sycamore computer recently finished a calculation that would take the greatest supercomputer on the world today would take 47 years, and they did it in like 14 seconds.
Wow.
So the question is, are they infusing humanoid robots with GenAI? And the answer is yes. Figure is already doing this. And they're going to run a test. They're already going to take the Figure robots to a BMW plant in Charleston, South Carolina. Now, what the humanoid robots are going to do there, I don't know yet. Are they going to just grab a box and move it from point A to point B? Unclear. But yes, if you can, with simulation technologies in virtual worlds, right? if you can train a robot in a sim on how to construct a building, then yes, I could clearly see humanoid robots, putting nails into boards with those guns they have, nail guns.
Yeah.
So yes, there is a huge opportunity for humanoid robots in a lot of different industries. What's important to us is we just need to make sure that we upskill, and the best employers are going to already upskill their employees to be able to leverage AI technologies.
So tell me about that. Like, how do we upskill humans when all this technology is moving 100 times faster? What does that even mean?
Yeah. So there was a LinkedIn post recently with an amazing statistic. It was Nitesh Rastogi that put it out, and it was 83% of developers are already leveraging AI in their code.
Okay. Yep.
Now, if you're a coder, and I was a developer in the past, early on in my career, you look for every trick in the trade to be able to do the code faster. And so Control-C, Control-V, copy-paste was a great way to, churn out the code. Now, if I can use AI to help me with a base code, and then I just tinker it with it and tweak it according to what the project needs are, that's great. So something that might have taken me 2 weeks to build, hand code and debug and whatnot, maybe I'm getting it done in 2 hours. So what AI is going to allow us to do is what we do today, only a lot faster.
Yeah, yeah. So what would you say to somebody who, and I'd be lying if it wasn't me I'm talking about, but kind of has a fear, kind of this underlying tone of fear about what does this mean to me in the future?
Yeah, so there's a lot of people that I've spoken with that have anxiety about AI, and it's understandable. But it's the same with every new technology that has come that the human race has embraced. Radio. People had a fit when radio first came out, and they were taking the radios and they were burning them in the streets. we don't remember this, right? Because it was so long ago. But as humans, we are inherently resistant to change. And I think that AI can truly transform and improve human existence if used properly.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. There is one thing that I did want to mention, though, is that there is going to be a huge divide between what I refer to as the global north and the global south, right?
Okay.
Developed nations in North America and Europe, we're going to be leveraging AI, and who knows, maybe our work week becomes 2 or 3 hours a week, and the rest of the day, if you want to go, let's go fishing. However, the global south is going to be even farther behind us than they are today. So that's something that's not really being talked about in a lot of AI circles, and I think it should be.
Yeah, that's a challenge. And I even think about like what my 2 or 3 hour work week, like who's going to pay me the same for that work week? Or, I mean, does the cost of living go down? Because I mean, there's so many things to kind of think through. I just really struggle with all this. So where do you see the biggest opportunities? Maybe in business. We'll start there. The biggest opportunities for AI, GenAI, robotics. Kind
of the two main buckets that I think about for business is one, automating mundane tasks so that your workers will focus on the more important critical thinking, critical reasoning, innovation, creativity. It frees them up to do that.
Yeah.
That's one.
Yep.
The second is personalization. AI and machine language, they can take your data and put it on steroids. They can find those nuggets of gold that are hidden in the data, and they could just respond to you if the data is, as I mentioned before, is categorized and prepared and cleansed. There's a whole preparation process for the data, but it can provide you with those nuggets of wisdom. Maybe it's a different UI on your website or your app, or maybe it's a different audience segment that you hadn't thought of before. So personalization is one of those key initiatives that can be driven by AI.
Yeah. All right. Do you think there's any careers out there that might be immune to the impact? I say immune as if it's a bad thing, right? But that won't be impacted as heavily by AI or Gen AI or robotics.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, theoretically, AI could be applied to any and every industry.
Yeah.
When I think about AI and the workforce, I just see it as an assistant to help you not do those mundane tasks and just supercharge your productivity and efficiency.
Which is a huge contrast to the park we're in. Because when I look around, I don't see much technology. Scoreboard, some cars. There's probably some crazy stuff in there, but all this park is doing just fine without AI, right?
Yes.
I don't think they've got any robotic lawn mowing going on. I still see people walking around with shovels and stuff. So there's hope for anybody who wants to kind of stay away from that. I'm going to shift a gear here. This came up to me this morning, and it's really the impact on the spiritual side. So can GenAI and all of that coexist with religion? What do you think about that?
So, interesting question.
And can I preface it?
Yes.
And I think of a couple examples. Preparing sermons, writing worship songs, generating prayer requests, responding to prayer requests. Does God even see that, right? Hear that? What do you think?
Yeah, tough question. I personally think that there needs to be a human touch with those types of endeavors.
Yeah.
If you're developing a sermon, maybe you use an AI to help you with an outline.
Oh, it's happening.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I think there was even a whole sermon delivered by an AI voice in a church. But maybe I'm more of a traditionalist in that sense. I personally think that, as the Spirit feeds us through our soul and body, that produces what people need to hear. It's that guiding principle that comes down from us from above. I would not want AI to interfere with that. I think it's holy and should be separate. There is some things that need to be separate, like the beautiful nature that we're sitting around right now. Yeah. It's good to get away from technology. It's good to see God's creation. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, and I would say you might say that because you have lived in a world where that didn't exist. Now, for the next generation coming up, where their whole life will be embedded with AI. Look, human nature says we get lazy, right? Mm-hmm. When people are doing things for us, or if AI is doing the thinking for us, why think? What do you think the future holds in that?
So, you're right. Like, my son is more connected on devices than I ever was at his age.
Yeah.
I grew up with the Atari 2600. I grew up in a time where you still had to walk to the television to change the channel, and maybe there were only 3 or 4 channels. So we've gone from that to cable packages to most people at this point have cut the cord, and to this point where they may have cut the cord and they've gone to just streaming, right? Mm-hmm. So at the same time, I can't help but think that as my son gets on, let's say, Fortnite, and he has a Discord channel with his friends so he can speak to them over audio. I didn't show him any of that. He figured it out on his own. But there's something there about team building and team skills as they work as a team to achieve their goals.
Right. Agreed.
So I, being a technologist, I am, again, probably biased towards him leveraging technology. And I give him room for that as long as he's done his homework and he's studied for his exams. I give him free rein there.
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of value in the human struggle, right? Where the answer or even possible answers aren't just teed up for you in a moment, right? I'm sure you can think of examples that when you were growing up and you were in school, just struggling through, writing a paper. That forced some skill development in you around creativity, around persistence, around grit, to accomplish something that was hard. So, I've got all these ethical dilemmas when I think about AI, and I'm trying to have a positive attitude. But I do know that, look, it's coming, whether I like it or not. So maybe the takeaway here is, how do you embrace it? How do you be a part of the future? Because it will impact all of us, one way or another, right?
Yeah, like you said, the genie's out of the bottle, right? We can't undo what's already out there. But you're absolutely right. If you want to become stronger, you have to go through resistance training, right? It's no different with the mind, right? If you want to learn something, you have to apply yourself. With GenAI, how deep down the rabbit hole do you want to go? Do you want to become a data architect? Do you want to learn Python? Do you want to really understand the nuances in the back end of how it works? Some people will. And some people are doing this.
Yeah.
And some people are creating their own custom GPTs. So AI, I see it as beneficial in that it can help us with questions we may have and ideation and whatnot, but it has its limits. And have we found as a society the correct balance between technology and life and others around us? I think the answer is no, right? Even before AI came along, go into an airport, most people are staring down at their phone.
Yeah.
Right? They're not
Yeah.
conversing with each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've kind of already gone down that path, whether AI was here or not.
All right. Well, I've got some ChatGPT questions for you.
Okay.
We'll see. So we've invited another co-host of this. It's ChatGPT 3.5. And can I call him a he or is he a she?
You can call him a he or a she.
I haven't named them yet. So here's one of the questions. How do you perceive the role of human creativity and intuition in the age of AI? Are there certain career paths that are more resistant to automation due to these uniquely human traits?
So interesting question. If you had asked me 6 months or even a year ago, I would have probably said, like you have a child, right? He's growing up in the age of GenAI.
Yeah.
Go down the data architect path, become a developer, learn Python. And still, I might even say that today. But moreover, what I'm finding is, given the power of the GPTs that are available to us, it might even be better to learn empathy, communication skills. Because if you're going to be interacting with a chatbot, whether it's through video or through audio or through text, you want to have those critical communication skills.
Yeah.
Because the better your text prompt is, I guarantee you, the better the output.
Wow, that's good. That's really good. And even when I was creating a prompt for this, I was writing my prompts in a way that I wanted to make sure the ChatGPT could understand it. So I had to clarify some things from because I didn't think they'd understand. Even though I could have probably written the prompt into like seven words, I wrote 100. So just so you understand ChatGPT, this is what I'm talking about. Here's another question: how do you foresee AI impacting the future of education and skill development? And we've been talking about this. Are there any specific areas where you believe educational systems should focus to prepare individuals for an AI-dominated workforce?
Oh, dangerous question, because I have a lot of thoughts on this. The way that universities crank out diplomas today, you learn a bunch of stuff, it's rote memorization, and then you forget it. You just want to pass tests, right? Is that the right way to learn? Personally, I don't think so, because these kids come out and they just went through rote memorization. They don't have any skills. Companies are looking for hard skills.
Yeah.
So I think universities and colleges need to change and develop programs where you give people the hard skills that the employers are looking for. Moreover, with AI and the where AI technology is today, instead of paying for a tutor, AI can be the tutor. And it doesn't have to just answer the question for the student. It can look over their shoulder through the smartphone or through the iPad and through video technology, look at what the kid is working on, and help them along the path to the solution for that equation without giving them the answer.
That's good. I heard this from a friend of mine, that people are hired for capabilities. They stay because of culture, but they're fired because of character. But we hire because of their skills and their capabilities. And we don't take the time to look into their character or their ethics and I would pile in grit on that, right? And empathy, and all those skills that really make someone like a valuable part of a cohesive team to get things done. Because if we're just hiring these skills, autonomous skills, what are we doing, right? ChatGPT has one more question for you.
Sure.
Looking ahead, what do you envision as the ideal relationship between humans and AI in the workforce? And how can we leverage AI technologies to enhance human potential and foster a more fulfilling work environment?
Well, you see, I take issue with your question because it's limiting AI to the workforce, and I don't think that's going to be the case.
No. But that just from a context of this interview.
Absolutely. So where I see AI evolving to is that we are all going to have our own personalized AI companions. They're going to know us backwards and forwards. And so when we ask AI for assistance, they're going to take the data set that is you, Bruce, or me, Joe, and they're going to look at all of that data and they're going to respond with the appropriate based on your character. So, when we think about like the series that we have in our houses, these personal assistants, they're all going to get infused with AI. The cool thing about where this is headed is it doesn't have to be limited to your home. You can take it with you if you're in the car.
Yeah.
The cars are going to drive themselves. We won't have steering wheels anymore. Houses are going to be redesigned. They won't need garages. We'll all have subscription services to autonomous vehicles, and the AI will be infused in that vehicle to, speak to you. What's interesting to you? World history, cultural events, music. The AI will know you. That's where I think it's heading. These personalized AI assistants they will know your work schedule. They'll know basically your entire life, and they'll be there as an assistant to guide you along the way.
So that kind of scares me. There's something inside of me that says I don't like that, because I think, and you might appreciate this, I like being known by people. Mm-hmm. I don't like being known by technology. Mm-hmm. The reason I think, I think I have an awesome marriage. It's because my wife knows me, and I know her. The areas that nobody else knows. I just don't want a technology to know that. And, there's just something about that just feels, it makes my skin crawl a little bit. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, it's understandable. The truth is with big data, what we know about you is already out there. Yeah, it could be anonymized, but independent of AI coming on the scene
sure,
or not.
I don't want to hear that.
Well,
it's too late. Oh gosh. Okay, so do you think AI can help me have a less consuming career?
I think that there are parts of our jobs and our careers. I think that for most of us, there are certain tasks that we need to fulfill that we're not learning from. And I think that those are the aspects of the work life that should be automated. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so what's going to end up happening, and some people will be comfortable with this and will welcome it, and some people will be anxious about it. But I think that where we're headed is AI is going to free up your time so that you can use those critical thinking skills to apply in the business in a more value-added way.
That's well put. So to follow on with that, do you think AI can help me find more meaning or purpose in my career or even in my life? And if so, how?
Well, if you allow AI to know you, the answer may be yes. You
caught me in that one.
The thing is, we're all such unique creatures. We're creatures of where we grew up. I didn't grow up in the United States. I grew up in Latin America. So I like to tell people that maybe my outlook on life may be a little bit different than yours. Yeah. I saw poverty firsthand. My mom, God bless her, she's an amazing person, and she would go to all these little towns in the middle of nowhere and take them vitamins and medicines. So I think that gives you a different outlook. We forget, even with all the problems we have in this country, and I call them first world problems, we are still so blessed. I mean, running water, electricity, the basics. If this gets turned off for a day or a week or, God forbid, a month or longer, people are going to take notice. But since it's always on and always available to us, I think we take a lot for granted.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're highly dependent on it, of course. Mm-hmm. Holy smokes. Mm-hmm. All right, kind of last question. So would you say you've consumed your career, or is your career consuming you?
So at this point in my career, I feel that Verizon is still challenging me.
Yeah.
And that is something that I truly, truly appreciate because, we are creatures made for learning. I did a post on happiness a few days ago, or I actually did a whole week of posts on happiness. And one of the takeaways was that as we learn, as we develop ourselves, that gives us a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And that, because people are chasing after happiness in a lot of different ways.
That's right. Yep.
And you don't have to chase happiness. There are just certain steps that you can take, and development and learning and fulfillment and giving back. These will just infuse you with happiness automatically. So you don't have to work hard for it. Just do the things that automatically we were meant to do and put here on earth for.
Yeah, that's good. Wow. Joe, I think we could probably go on for a long time around this whole topic. Theoretically, ethically, just kind of, it's huge, right? Mm-hmm. And it will dominate a lot of our lives going forward. But instead of doing that, we're going to do our lightning round.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. 5 questions. If AI was a marathon, where would we be right now?
We are halfway through.
Halfway through?
Halfway through.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. I wasn't expecting that. I was thinking more maybe mile number 1 or 2. But okay. All right. I'll take that. What has been your most surprising interaction with AI?
The hallucinations. I use it a lot for ideation, and I have to be careful. I can't just take it verbatim. I can't take it as gospel. It hallucinates, and I've seen it. I've experienced it myself, so be careful.
Okay. All right. And these last 3 questions are from ChatGPT.
Okay.
If AI could automate one mundane task in your daily routine, what would you choose, and what would you do with all that extra time?
Jira, it's the ticketing process we use at Verizon. I would automate all of that, and it would free me up to do more productive work.
Okay. All right. What would that be?
Well, right now I'm in the email marketing side of the house.
Yep.
So it would be, give me more tickets, because I don't have to just push things through tickets.
So you wouldn't leave work early and...
Well, you kind of caught me there. If I had more free time, probably start a Taekwondo class.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. And then would you rather have an AI assistant with a flawless memory for every detail, or one that shares your sense of humor and can crack jokes during the workday?
Oh my gosh, we all need a break of humor during the day. So I'll take the humor
You take your own personal Jerry Seinfeld.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, last question. In a world where AI could mimic any celebrity voice for your virtual assistant, which voice would you choose to guide you through your workday?
Oh my gosh, that's a tough one. I would say Winston Churchill.
Wow. Oh, that's a good one. That's a great answer.
Yeah.
That would be a pretty inspiring, time to get your coffee. Oh, that's great. Great answer. All right. Well, how can somebody find you or follow you or connect with you?
Just search me up, Joe Oquist. How
do you spell that?
It's Joe, and then the Oquist is Oquist, last 6 letters of ventriloquist.
Okay.
Give me a follow, DM me. I'm always happy to meet new people, and if I can help you out in any way, I'm happy to do so.
That's really great. Joe, I really appreciate you taking time for this podcast. Love the idea of doing it in the park while we're talking about AI. And, while you were talking, I was looking over your shoulder at those guys. They were doing Tai Chi for...
They're still at it.
They just finished.
Okay.
They just left.
Gotcha.
But they've been going for probably an hour and a half.
Yeah, it's beautiful to watch.
Yeah, and you can't automate that.
No, you cannot automate that.
Yeah. That's really great. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us on Consuming Careers. If you've enjoyed the show, please click the follow button in your podcast app so you won't miss any of our future episodes. And if you have a minute, write us a review. We truly appreciate hearing from our listeners. And as always, I'm Bruce Smith, and you've been listening to Consuming Careers.